as we all know, Donald Trump was convicted of falsifying business records in 34 counts. He's now a convicted felon. Um, and right-wingers are freaking out about it, and they're finding any way out of this. The cope is very strong, and the biggest one that we are hearing is the idea that, like, this has never happened before. No person has ever been charged with falsifying business documents, and definitely not a felony, a Class E felony. What are you talking about? Why is it? No, they have. They have. And I'm going to take everyone down this little primrose path, and then we'll explain what being a convicted felon means for Donald Trump. It's just fun stuff. But just, this is let's add this here. This is from Just Security, and they did a really great job, almost like predicting that right wingers were going to freak out and say things like, this is a made up law. This is a witch hunt. This is a Democratic plot, even though has nothing to do with Joe Biden. And they look at survey of past New York felony prosecutions for falsifying business records. Yes, that is exactly what he was charged and convicted with under New York State law, Penal Code 175.10, which I'm sure every MAGA person in the comments right now has read. But let's go through them. And so there's an entire table. There's an entire scribed PDF, if y'all want, that actually details a bunch of cases where other people were charged with this exact same thing. Now, there are 2 degrees of this. There's first degree falsifying business records and second degree falsifying business records. And we will get into what the difference is between that and why one is a felony and one is not. So you have here people of state of New York versus Josue Aguilar Dubon, who was a Bronx business owner indicted for failing to report over $1 million of income and avoid paying $60,000 in taxes. On and on and on. Maria Ramirez, convicted for returning unpurchased items to a store in exchange for store credit, thus causing a false entry in a business record of an enterprise. Who knew you couldn't do that? Maria Ramirez got nailed. She didn't serve time, but others have actually served jail time for this exact crime. Now, here's the deal. The crime of falsifying business records can be committed in the second degree, which is a Class A misdemeanor, which a lot of these right-wing trolls are like, it's just a misdemeanor. It's a misdemeanor. But it's in the first degree, which is a Class E felony, if the following: an individual is guilty of falsifying business records when in the first degree when he commits the crime of falsifying business records in the second degree, and when his intent to defraud includes an intent to commit another crime or to aid or conceal the commission thereof, meaning covering up the falsification of the business records. So it's one thing to falsely, to cheat on your tax returns. It's another thing to try and cover up what you just did. And Donald Trump was accused and convicted by 12 members of a jury of doing exactly that. That is why it is a fucking that's why it's a fucking felony. Okay? Just so everyone's clear. And I'm like, this is stuff that, like, I'm sorry we have to go through this, but we do. For Trump to be prosecuted for felony violation of falsifying business records, the statute requires the DA to not only prove that Trump is guilty, but that he did so with the intent to commit another crime or aiding or concealing the commission of another crime. So that is what happened. Now, any questions?
No, I don't. From us, or no, I don't think so.
Now, here's the fun part, which is what happened to Trump now? What happened? Trump now convicted felon. So apparently he cannot travel to over 27 countries because he is a convicted felon. He cannot hold office in New York or Florida. He cannot even sit on a jury. But there's nothing in the Constitution preventing him from running or, in fact, becoming president. So that's fun. Greatest democracy on earth. He will likely be able to vote because if he's not incarcerated, he can vote, and he's going to be sentenced on July 11th. He most likely will not be sentenced to any prison time, although he's facing a maximum of 4 years. I'll let you guys weigh in on your thoughts on how much he's actually going to face. And if he is elected, he cannot pardon himself in this because, again, the jurisdiction is not federal. It is state. It is a state crime. And so, yeah, them's the deal. That's what happened. But guys, what are you looking forward to on July 11th? What do you think? What kind of, I'm imagining, I've said this, like, just like the soup kitchen, have to work with like seniors, some kind of, service work where he has to be in a hairnet.
I'd like to see him, because he if that judge does not give him jail time, that is like the most patient human living in the world, because he was such a prick during the entire trial.
Such a prick.
Trump was,
Continues
and
to
like
be a prick.
for that judge to still be like, okay, whatever. Yeah, community service, or that's a guy with a lot of self-control. I'm not a big jail guy, but I do just think it would be funny if the president was sentenced to like one of those extremely ticky-tack jail terms where they gave him like a weekend in prison and then let him
Yeah.
off with like supervised for release for a couple weeks. Like, I want him to get as little
Something.
jail time as possible. It's just so he's like a guy who got into a fight in Vegas and is hanging around outside of Walgreens being like, I just need $35 for a bus ticket back to Los Angeles. That's it. I got in some trouble. I missed my trip home. I just need a one-way ticket. You can buy it in front of me if you want. That's what I'm looking for from this.
Max, your reaction to the conviction, the 34 counts, New York showing up?
Man, I got like a mix of very serious and less serious kind of reactions here. But I'll start with the less serious one. Is yeah, fuck this guy and and fuck his supporters. Like, Jesus Christ, like, this has been such an absurd spectacle of what we call justice. I mean, like, but I think it's in many ways a symbolic moment, because so many people have for so long wanted to pin Trump down to accountability somehow.
Right.
And it feels like this is like that thing that people have been waiting for. So I understand where the jubilation's coming from. I understand where the schadenfreude's coming from. Like, we're all schadenfreuden right now.
Right.
But like, I as someone like you
shot
guys
in our pants in November.
we're gonna be shot in our pants. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, but as someone who has lived through the Trump era like you guys and is trying to learn from it instead of continually falling into the same society destroying traps that we in the media and we as citizens have been falling into since Trump rose on the political scene almost a decade ago. What I've learned from the Trump era is that this feels more like the beginning of something than the end. And, like, we have been doggedly covering the Trumpian right, the increasingly fascistic takeover of what remains of the Republican Party on my colleague Mark Steiner's show. He's covering this like almost every other week on his series Rise of the Right, which I'd encourage folks to check out. But at the same time, we have weekly shows like the Police Accountability Report and Rattling the Bars, where we take a deep, hard look at like the horrors of our prison industrial complex and our criminal justice system. And like, you cannot watch that work, you cannot see my team's reporting on this and not get the sense that like Trump has no intentions of going quietly, and this system has no intentions of treating him the same way it treats all of us. Like, he doesn't, and it won't. And so, like, that's what I just want to caution folks, is that what do I think is going to happen? I don't think Trump's ever going to see jail time. And I think what he is doing already, what he did the moment he got out of that courtroom and signaled to his supporters the same way he did in November of 2020, is that he will challenge, question, criticize, and undermine the authority of any like democratic process or system, including those designed to uphold the law and order he pretends to love so well. He will like encourage folks to attack the legitimacy of it if it gets in his way. So that is what's happening on the 11th, is like, basically he is going to throw his supporters and his movement to attack the legitimacy of the criminal justice system writ large, regardless of what happens.
Right. I mean, it's like, yeah, attack it, go after the criminal justice system. But he's it's very much, and the same thing with Jan Sixers when they were rightfully, I mean, the fact that more weren't killed that day is a fucking miracle and a product of being white. But the fact is that they are upset and incensed and think like this is a hit job and this is crazy because finally the law is being applied evenly. And there are white collar criminals all throughout New York. I mean, all these billionaires that are rushing to defend Donald Trump around this and they're freaking out and they're like, if they can do this to him, it's like they've all falsified business records. Maybe not in the first degree, maybe in the second, maybe they just never got caught and no one's looking at their shit. Once again, Trump could have been perfectly fine just being a predator celebrity businessman and he just had to run for president. So like that's what they're grooming us to believe, is that this is a political witch hunt, that it's persecution, and that if and when Trump becomes president again, that gives them carte blanche to actually lock up any of their opponents for literally whatever, not from some shit that they did to themselves, which is like covering up hush money payments to a porn star they fucking like push themselves on in a hotel in Lake Tahoe.
Mm-hmm. Well, and can I just say like one thing on that front? And I promise I'll be short. So, but like the whole effort to like turn Trump into, as he describes himself now, a quote political prisoner. Like,
yeah,
again, I really want to stress to people like that is absolute horseshit. And in fact, it is like the highest level of horseshit that you can imagine. And I say that as someone who had the
high
honor,
level horseshit.
yeah, I've had the honor of working with some of this country's like most prominent, accomplished, incredible former political prisoners, including Marshall Eddie Conway, who passed away last year, who founded the show Rattling the Bars. He's our Mandela. He was a famous, like, you know, Black Panther who was framed and locked up for 44 years and like somehow managed to keep organizing while in prison, fighting for his freedom, organized labor unions, like impacted so many people's lives while living in the most hopeless place imaginable, in the most crushing system created on earth. Like that is what a political prisoner looks like. Like Trump calling himself a political prisoner is absolute horseshit, but like this is what they are trying to do. Like they don't care about people like Eddie Conway. They don't care about like what a real political prisoner means. They don't care that like none of that. Leonard Peltier is still in prison right now. Like, I mean, this
but
is
what about all the incredible work that he did with Kim Kardashian and Van Jones? Swear to God. That's for a whole other episode of what I would be bitching about. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/bitchuation room. Do it.